You're on with Rob Anthony on Wide Open Washington.
How are you? This is Anthony Lolli.
Oh, hey, how's it going, Anthony?
Good, good, good. So my field of expertise is real estate.
All right, and there's been a burst in apartment, I guess it was desire or apartment. Like, why are people moving towards apartments as opposed to wanting a house?
Well, you know, the American dream is still alive, but the fact is it's not alive when it doesn't become an asset. You know, the whole advantage of buying versus renting was the whole notion of that renting is just throwing money down the drain, whereas versus buying, you can actually attain something that you can flip somewhere down the road and make a profit or use it kind of as a piggy bank, as a credit card, or as a way to cash in and maybe upgrade your lifestyle. Nowadays, that's not the case. They're looking at people that, you know, the equity appreciation is less than what they're paying on the mortgage payment. So people are afraid. And then on the flip side, when you have situations like Sandy, and natural disasters that leave people thinking, well, imagine if I owned this house, what would happen then? The insurance company doesn't want to pay me, and then I'm out my home and I'm out my investment.
Uh, as somebody who's kind of at that age where I'm getting that pressure to, well, why don't you buy a house? You know, I kind of look at it and I say, well, with a house, I've got to pay probably higher utility bills and homeowners fees, and I've got to do all the maintenance, all the things that I don't worry about now in an apartment. I've got to cut the grass and I've got to paint, and when something gets broken, I've got to call in a guy and pay for it myself. Is that another reason for the raise in demand that people just don't want to do those things anymore?
Well, sure. I mean, it is a rental nation right now. There's a big rental boom, so you can actually lease something for a fraction of what it would have cost you to mortgage it. So, on terms of like standard of living or quality of life, you can have the lifestyle of home ownership that it gives you with regards to large square footage, but you're going to get a better deal. But it goes above and beyond the standard repairs. What about a leaky faucet or a leaky toilet? A water bill comes in over $1,000. Are you prepared to handle that? Those are the questions that renters need to ask themselves before they even get involved in a purchase.
So I honestly, I feel like a house is something that you need because you have, a big family, or because you need the space, not just something that oh, I want a house because of the expenses. That's how I look at it. And because people told you that was the American dream, do you think that American dream is kind of just changing now because it just doesn't make sense financially like it used to?
Well, when you have REITs and you have sophisticated venture capitalist groups and private equity buying actual houses and leasing them out, well, if a house is what you need, you can lease it. See, the goal of home ownership was to say that you own something, have pride, and contribute to society in that way, but also to be able to sell it somewhere down the road and use it as a retirement vehicle.
And now there are a lot of people that are in their houses, they're underwater. So that whole thing is gone now.
They're severely underwater. Although there are spikes in sales right now, but mainly in metropolitan areas. And the spikes in sales that are happening in rural parts are happening mainly because there's sophisticated investors buying homes by the dozens. So that type of activity makes it seem like there's a big recovery. And in one sense there is, if somebody is, buying up these homes, but it's certainly not your average mom and pop.
Another thing that I think that affects this trend is that there are a lot more single people out there. People aren't necessarily getting married, or at least not as many people are getting married, as young when they're, coming out of high school, probably because they can't financially now, because with all the debt that acquire, just from going to school, you see a lot more younger single people out there that are staying single until they're 20, 30, years old. And those people generally, if you're living by yourself, why do you need a house? So I'm thinking that's also part of the demand being raised.
I think so. Single people like that agility. Single people bounce around. One day they're in New York, next thing you know they're in Chicago, and all of a sudden they're in Ohio. They might want to try the roommate situation one year. Next year they want a studio, one bedroom, and then a year later they're back to living with a significant other. So the singles have that agility to move back and forth, but the singles did contribute to the condo market, especially the studio and one bedroom condo market. There was a boom at one point in time for that sector.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been kind of saying these things to people for a long time, and they've been trying to beat me over the head. No, 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 no. You should buy a house. So it's kind of refreshing that somebody that's an expert in this field that looks at these numbers and deals with this every day. Is
well. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. If you're going to buy for the specific purpose of holding on to it for between 5 and 7 years, without a shadow of a doubt, you can sell it and realize a profit for sure. And it might even change your financial situation. You might be able to sell it for a hefty profit. But this is a situation where you would need to buy and hold for 5 to 7 years. And it better be your dream scenario in terms of quality of life, because otherwise you're going to be paying for something that's not necessarily your first choice of the digs that you want to live in.
Yeah, I kind of look at a house as something like a long-term investment. I want a house because this is, this is where I want my family to live. It's a good community. This is kind of a long-term thing, not something that I, make a profit off of. That's just kind of, to me, this is just me personally talking. That's just a bonus. The tax deductions that you get off of from being a homeowner, those things are a bonus. I think you should need the house and need the space and want it, for its value as a structure, not so much an investment vehicle.
Right.
Okay. So we're in agreement there?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what type of numbers are you seeing? Like what is the demand like for apartments, where you are?
Well, it's huge. I mean, first of all, about 30 months ago, I had one location, one real estate retail store, and now I have 60. And it's crazy. And the main reason why I went from one location to 60 locations is because of the apartment boom. There was such a huge demand for people renting, but not just, people looking to just move. We're talking about people homeowners that they practice what we call prevention is cheaper than cure. So they said, rather than face foreclosure and rather than go through a short sale proceeding, I might as well just rent out my existing home, downsize my living condition so that I at least can save my asset and just ride out this recession. So there was a lot of people doing that. In addition to that, people that got laid off or some people that got fired and then, got another job for half of their salary. They were moving. They downsized their existing rental situation down to a cheaper apartment. So there were some people that just made adjustments. Also, when there's like an economic collapse, a lot of people hit the books. They go back to school. They try to load up on degrees and education. So we started noticing a huge burst in the student housing market as well.
And one thing that I'm seeing here in D.C., I don't know if it's the same in New York, Philly, Chicago, is that we're seeing more urbanization, more even a little bit outside of the city. You're seeing places being built up near, the subway and bus stations. So, and people kind of living without a car. That may be like the wave of the future, maybe a little bit more environmentally friendly, where they're making communities walkable. And you're talking about apartments and condos rather than houses. Have you seen that trend?
Absolutely. You start noticing it. It all stretches out because in the prime territories, the more metropolitan areas, things tend to continue to rise. And although it's a renter's nation right now, that means that the rental dollar per square foot is super, super high. So people tend to kind of pioneer neighborhoods that are on the offskirts. And now it's kind of cool to be, 4 or 5 blocks away from the subway or the bus or something like that. because it is environmentally friendly. And along your way, there's restaurants, there's cafes, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do. So there's so many different options right now for renters. And because the turnover is so high in renting, because no one's really getting a good deal as far as renting apartments is concerned. If you really wanted to live in a certain neighborhood, you just wait somebody's lease out, and more than likely they're moving.
Yeah, because I live pretty close to a metro station, and my transportation costs are going way down. So I definitely can feel the benefits. I want to move, but I feel like, wow, where can I go? Even if I get a cheaper apartment, or something, live somewhere better, is it worth me losing that closeness to public transportation? So that's something I kind of factor in. Like, wow, I mean, how much I'm right by the highway, if I need to drive, and I'm right by the subway. It's like the perfect location. I that's something I got to think about, and I think, yeah.
Yeah, you have all these other options now available, besides just walking, biking, taking transportation. You have Zip cars, you have programs like Hertz On Demand, where you can rent a car for an hour or two if you need to. You don't necessarily have to assume all that overhead. So I just think people are just thinking smarter. They're cutting their ties to tremendous personal overhead, and just finding a way to, have quality of life and have a small slither of savings and just enjoy themselves.
Yeah, I think the American dream is changing every day.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Anthony, we're almost out of time. I thank you for joining me. This was a really interesting conversation about kind of the changing of the thinking about the real estate market in America.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate that.
All righty.